We have Chair Jennifer Homendy here from the National Transportation Safety Board. Jennifer, thanks for joining us today.
Sure.
Really appreciate you coming along and talking with us about safety, something I think you know a few things about.
Well, thanks for having me.
So, the first thing I wanted to ask you about, because it's been a hot topic in mainstream media, but also, of course, in the aviation space, is runway incursions. And in 2023, the FAA recorded 23 serious runway incursions. Some of them were pretty high profile. They made a lot of news. What recommendations has the NTSB made about runway incursions? And can you talk a little bit about some of this technology that's on the market and what you all kind of have recommended the FAA for that?
Yeah, and just to sort of set the stage on where things are on data, FAA collects data on the runway incursions, and of course, overall data on runway incursions is up and down every year. It's generally around 1,600, 1,700 every year. But the most serious ones, the category A and B, as you mentioned, was 23. Those are down from where they've been over the last couple of years. With that said, it only takes one, which is why, and I think this is an important point, a lot of people wonder why the NTSB investigates incidents and not just accidents. The reason why we do incidents is so we can learn about them and prevent a future accident from occurring. And so you mentioned some of our work and our recommendations. Our oldest recommendation, which stems back to 2000 regarding runway incursions, is technology that directly alerts pilots of a potential problem, and not just air traffic control. And that's where we want to see some redundancy. Certainly there's technology for air traffic control, the older technology like ASDX. Some of the newer technology we have some concerns about. We're looking at this in a runway incursion in Nashville where the newer technology to ASDX does not actually alert air traffic control there's no oral alerting feature at all for air traffic control on that. So that's something we're really taking a look at in that investigation. But in order to provide redundancy, we believe that technology needs to be available to pilots in the cockpit.
Got it. So correct me if I'm wrong, but the technology to sort of mitigate the risk of runway incursions, that's been on the NTSB's most wanted list per se for quite a while. I kind of want to ask you, do you feel like they're making progress as progress is being made in that front?
Well, I do think with development of the technology, one of those technologies I had just seen in the past couple of weeks, I'm going to see another one in August. So now we're having more and more competitors developing that technology, making it available. Previously, FAA had responded that it wasn't available, and now it is, and now we want them to act on it.
Got it. So shifting a little bit to training, we have the industry as a whole, particularly on the Part 121 side. It's no secret there's a greener workforce entering the market. It's not a bad thing, but it's younger, it's newer, it's fresher. I want to talk to you about, because I know you mentioned in one congressional hearing at one point about sort of this death by PowerPoint or whatever you want to call it. But what do you guys feel, is the best way to kind of adopt training standards to this younger crowd?
Yeah, so I think what we really have relied on in aviation is that death by PowerPoint. That's that computer-based training. Not everyone learns that way. Some people are hands-on, and what we really need to look at is the research out there with how people learn. And it differs by individual. What's the best way to teach? Right now we are engaging with air traffic control, and they're not remembering pretty significant trainings that they had a week ago or a month ago. That's a problem.
Right.
So, in order to have good training standards, we really need to look at how do people learn best, and then providing that training to the point of muscle memory.
Right. Do you think, I think during COVID there's been quite a bit of retirements of more senior workers. Do you think that at all kind of contributes to, a bit of incidents or safety occurrences would be the term, just because there's maybe the lack of long-standing knowledge. And so, do you all kind of see that in some data, or Have you seen a spike coming out of COVID from that?
Well, I think there's definitely a newer workforce. And I think that is true everywhere. It's true for the NTSB. And for us, that's looking at what is our training providing, how has our workforce changed? Do they have that historical knowledge that has been there with a lot of the more senior tenured individuals, and it has that historical knowledge passed on to them? So we are seeing that, and I think that's true in the aviation industry as well. And something we looked at in the Alaska 1282 door plug blowout was that newer workforce at Boeing and that need to do training, and to look at that as that does create some opportunities with a new workforce, but also create some challenges, and doing a really good safety risk assessment and including that, and figuring out where you need to go and make sure your workforce is up for the job.
Gotcha. Got it. So shifting to, again, another hot topic, as we like to talk about here, pilot mental health in aviation. Sort of how does the NTSB view sort of the current balance between maintaining safety and ensuring pilots feel like they can get help or potentially face a career-ending move?
Yeah, I'm going to be pretty blunt here. I think there needs to be a complete overhaul on FAA and how they view not just mental health and address mental health. I mean, mental health, healthcare is healthcare. Doesn't matter if it's mental health or if it's physical health. It needs to be treated the same, but the way the FAA operates, it's like back to the 1950s. And what we're seeing in mental health and how the FAA treats it, it's really a symptom of something bigger. They need a complete overhaul of how they deal with medicals in general. You'll hear the FAA say, only 1% are denied. Come on. All of us have heard the stories, and what we don't want is a situation where a pilot feels like they have to lie to fly.
Got it. Yeah. So, kind of with the NTSB.
Can I add something to that? I really find the one question on the application for medical just insult. It's unbelievable that you even ask. Has any time in your life have you ever experienced depression or anxiety?
Right.
Which one of us could say no to that? Come on.
Right.
Anyways, go ahead.
No, you're good. Would the would the NTSB sort of support reforms to the FAA's sort of medical certification process that reduce these sort of stigmas in the industry? It sounds like the answer to that is yes.
Absolutely. I mean, they formed an aviation rulemaking committee which came out with 40-something recommendations, or great recommendations. What I don't want to see is another report out there and then shelved.
Yeah.
They need to take action.
Do you think they're moving quick enough?
No, they are not. What we're not talking about here is, people just generally jump to things like German wings and think, the worst of the worst. Most people, they have regular struggles. You're going through a divorce. You're, somebody's sick in your family. And of course, you need to be able to seek health care and mental health care. And people tend to point at the larger airlines, which have some peer programs, but sometimes you need professional help. And those peer programs are not really available for GA pilots. So there needs to be a real shift.
Do you, sort of my last point on this, but do you think Congress needs to step in and take some action on this too to push that ball forward, or do you think it needs to be exclusively regulatory?
I don't think we're going to get anywhere where it's regulatory. I think people are going to sit on it. It's going to take 7, 8, 10 years. I'll be collecting Social Security by the time we're going to see action. I think Congress does need to take action, and there are a lot of folks in Congress. I mean, you look at Sam Graves, who's a pilot, who's head of Transportation Infrastructure Committee, and he's done a lot for medical reform, and I think more can be done.
Yeah. Do you all see, I promise this is my last question on this, but it's a great, it's a really hot topic and important, and like you look internationally, do you see other countries, other nations, other regulatory bodies making progress while we're sort of behind the 8 ball in regards to pilot mental health?
Not really. I think in some countries it's even worse. And so, we do have to look at it more broadly, but I think the United States is a leader on safety. There's no reason we can't be a leader here, and we should.
Got it. So moving on to general aviation safety, we're here at Oshkosh, Mecca for aviation. It's
very exciting.
Very exciting, and I want to talk about general aviation accidents kind of remain a major contributor in overall aviation fatalities. I think in 2023 there was 1,200 accidents reported and 300 fatalities. I mean, that's still a pretty big number. So what are the trends or causes the NTSB continues to observe in this general aviation space for deadly accidents?
Yeah, well, I will say the numbers are going down. I mean, that is certainly nothing to celebrate until you're at zero, but they are going down. And trending down, and have been for the last decade, both in terms of totals and then fatalities and injuries. But again, we have a number of recommendations. I mean, 40%, if you look at our data, are loss of control in flight. And a lot of that, and the NTSB is really working with the stakeholder community and on a joint safety committee to really bring awareness on training.
Right.
I mean, training is something that we think needs to be highlighted, because in the loss of control in flight, we're seeing concerns with aircraft control and airspeed management, and we believe training can help on that. Certainly awareness, and we're working with the GA community to get the word out.
Got it. So let's talk about, in that sort of same vein, let's talk about safety management systems, something you all have advocated for a long time. Part 121 carriers have to use them. They're starting to be more adopted at charter, Part 135, airports, that sort of thing. But, do you think an SMS system could help with higher risk GA activities?
I do. I mean, all across transportation, we recommend SMS, no matter the mode. And even if you are looking at it from your daily life, let's say, I'm driving my car, what are the risks? And how do you address those risks? That is something anybody can do. Anticipating those risks, planning for how you're going to mitigate them. There's risk in everything we do, but there's no reason why even a single individual can't do safety management.
Right. So I want to talk, finally on the general aviation side, ADSB has become much more, I think a lot of people who aren't in aviation recently have found out what that is.
Yeah.
But, what other technologies, in addition to ADSB, do you all kind of see as being useful to prevent, serious accidents in the general aviation space?
Well, certainly, and I'll just highlight on ADSB, when ADSB out was mandated in certain classes of airspace, we commented that ADSB out is fine, and we support that, but we also need ADSB in. And we've investigated other accidents where we've made similar recommendations, like when I was in Ketchikan and there was a mid-air collision of two float planes, and they were tour planes or tour operations, and it was very tragic, but that's something we recommended there, and we've recommended it for years. So we've got ADSB in. We've recommended, like I mentioned, the direct pilot alerting for runway incursions. We've recommended something along the lines of ASDX, and of course we're not seeing that same performance of the newer technologies that are going into air traffic control towers around the U.S. And would like to see that upgraded. But we have recommended so much on technology, collision avoidance. We're going to talk about at our hearing, which is coming up next week, actually, on the DCA mid-air collision. Yeah. And we're going to have an entire panel where we really focus on collision avoidance technologies. So we do have a number of recommendations on technology. When we do an investigation, we look very broadly, man, machine, and the environment.
Got it. Oh, that's actually a great stepping off point, because next week is sort of your hearing on the DC accident. But, I want to talk broadly about the symbiosis, I guess is the term I like to use, between military aviation and, Part 121 or really any civilian activity. There was an incident yesterday. Don't expect you to comment on it, but I'm sure we've all seen it in the news.
B-52.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, how do you, what recommendations can you give to the DoD or the FAA to sort of work that out? Because, on either side of that coin, you have, like we've talked about, newer workforce, or other stuff going on, and what recommendations can we use to blend military and civilian safer?
Yeah, I mean, there does have to be a blending because you're both sharing the skies. Right. That is something that is going to be a key focus of our hearing next week. So just for folks that are listening, we're having a 3-day hearing. It starts on Wednesday, the 30th, from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And these are investigative hearings. They are geared towards us developing more factual evidence related to the DCA mid-air collision. We have collected over the last 6-7 months a lot of evidence, but this is another step in the process to collect additional factual data. That morning at 9 a.m., we are going to release our entire docket. You can find that at ntsb.gov. That means all our evidence so far will be available publicly. And then we'll have 9 to 7. We're going to do 2 panels that day, really focused on specifics of that collision and operations in the DC airspace, which includes the sharing of not just military aircraft, civilian aircraft, but also there are a number of other helicopter operators in that area, in that airspace, hospitals, healthcare, news agencies, you name it. And other departments as well. So we're going to look at that, and then we'll have on the 31st 2 more panels from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then we'll have a third day on August 1st it'll start at 9. We'll see how long we need to go, probably half day, but it could be more. I want to make sure everybody has their opportunity to ask questions. So our technical staff from our investigators will ask questions, the board will ask questions, and then parties to our hearing will also ask questions. So It's a pretty in-depth process. And then our intent or expectation will be that we'll complete that we'll complete the entire investigation and have a board meeting next January.
Got it. Well, Chair Homendy, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks
for being here
me,
at
Ryan.
Oshkosh. It's a beautiful day out, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.